Today is the final chapter of the Bodhicharya Vatara by Shantideva, and this is the chapter on dedication. And dedication is a very important part of our whole process on the path of a bodhisattva to attaining enlightenment. And I thought I'd say a little bit about that as we go through these opening prayers that we have. Before we begin any action, our teachers have always told us that we need to set a motivation, any Dharma action, that we need to set a motivation for that action and an intention for that action. So when we're looking at this very first prayer, taking refuge in generating bodhicitta, we are setting an intention and a motivation with this prayer. We're saying, I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the gurus are my spiritual masters who are representatives of the Buddha. So even though it says Buddha Dharma Sangha here, when you think Buddha Dharma Sangha, think of the spiritual masters, your gurus, who have introduced you to the Dharma, because they are quite actually the Buddha's representative to us in this particular world that we're in. So you think that we're taking refuge in our spiritual teachers, the enlightened beings, the Dharma realizations that we ourselves will attain while we're traversing this path. So when we're saying taking refuge in the Dharma, we're taking refuge in our own realizations that we are going to develop and have as we move along this path. And the Sangha is the assembly of bodhisattvas. These highly realized beings who are also on this path, certainly closer to enlightenment than we are, and they are here to guide, help, and inspire us. So we feel that this is what we are saying in this prayer, and this is the intention that the final phrase of this line of this refuge prayer is, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. That's the motivation. That's what we're doing. That's what the whole next hour and a half is about. And so by setting this motivation and intention before a Dharma practice, it's like, they say it's like having the reins on a horse. You know, the horse is going to go where you direct those reins, rather than just let the horse run wild. What we're doing with setting a motivation and intention is we're setting a direction that we want our minds to go in for the period of time that we are having this particular discussion on the final chapter of Shantideva. So let's say this first refuge generating bodhicitta prayer. Sangye chodam soki chobnam la jangchu bardu dagni kyapsuchi dargi jinso giper sonam ki rola penchir sangye druparsho sangye chodam soki chobnam la Jangchu bardu dagni kyapsuchi dagi jinso gipe sonam ki rola penchir sangye druparsho sangye chadang soki chognam la Jangchu bardu dagni kyapsuchi Dagi jinso gipe sonam ki drola penchir sangye druparsho. Then with the next prayer, the four immeasurable thoughts, we are intensifying our intention to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings, and we're thinking of the sentient beings who are the reason, the object of our motivation. So we think here, when we're saying, may all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of suffering be free from the suffering, think that we're talking about sentient beings in every realm of existence. Don't just think about the humans and the animals and on this planet that we're aware of. But try to expand your mind to take in every possibility of a sentient being that exists throughout the entire universe as we currently conceive it to be or perceive it to be. So you're making this motivation huge, as vast and as infinity, really. So let's say these four measurable thoughts. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. And then at the end of these four measurable thoughts, have the thought in your mind that I will make this happen. I will do this, and it's through the blessings and the inspirations of my spiritual teachers and the Buddhas and all the Bodhisattvas that I've even been exposed to anything like this and have developed a intention and a wish and a motivation to do this. And so it's through the power of that connection of the lineage that I myself will be able to do this. So you think those thoughts after this. It gives you a sense of strength and courage and a sense of real commitment that this is what you want to do. This is what is going to make your life the most meaningful. This is to accumulate the merit that we need to continue on this path of the Bodhisattva. So let's say this 7-limb prayer. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every type of offering, actual and mentally transformed. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the merits of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until samsara ends, and turn the wheel of Dharma for sentient beings. I dedicate the merit created by myself and others to the great enlightenment. So this here, we're dedicating the merit, and the dedication is different than the motivation. The dedication is when you take any merit that you have accumulated through a Dharma practice or a Dharma action, and you dedicate it to the enlightenment for all sentient beings. And so what they say it's like is when a drop of water goes into the ocean, that drop of water will never leave the ocean as long as the ocean exists. So as long as there are Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and spiritual practitioners who are working to help enlightened beings, and that we are part of that lineage, that dedication that we make to this will never be diminished. It will only increase. In fact, they say by making this kind of dedication with our mind, strongly with our mind, that even when we have afflictive emotions outside of our Dharma practice, such as anger and attachment and desire, it will not affect this dedication that we've made of our merit. Our merit will not be reduced by those actions. Yeah, it's like putting it in the bank.
Yeah.
And so to think of it that way. Now we make the mandala offering, and here, I mean, they have what these words are talking about are, Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. It has many different kinds of interpretations. But what is helpful to think here is that we're making this offering and imagining that all sentient beings do achieve enlightenment, that they do go through the process of turning their mind around, growing their merit, growing their wisdom, and becoming enlightened. And the kind of existence, the kind of world it would be when this occurs, when all sentient beings have attained enlightenment. And we make this offering to the holy beings in front of us. Zaji Perki Jokshim Ram Rablingji Ni De Yen Pa Sangye Dropunanda Chinda Chapasho Idam Guru Ratnamandalakam Niryatayo. Then, if you saw on the email that I sent out, Geshe Nima has requested that we recite some of the stanzas from Shantideva's text. And he and I talked about this and discussed the idea of taking one stanza from each of the chapters and putting them together in sort of a 10-verse prayer, you might say, that outlines the entire path of the Bodhisattva. What I did here is, as it is done in the commentaries, each chapter is part of a particular phase of the Bodhisattva path. So the first 3 chapters are about bodhicitta dawning, in our mind. The second 3 chapters are about protecting and maintaining bodhicitta once we have had an aspiration to have this kind of enlightened mind. The third 3 chapters are about strengthening that bodhicitta, making it grow. And then the final chapter is about dedicating the merit of this process. So you can see in these stanzas that I've put at the end of each line, I've put in small type what chapter and what verse that these stanzas are from. So let's just read, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 together. To them in whom this precious jewel of mind is born, to them I bow. I go for refuge to those springs of happiness who bring their very enemies to perfect bliss. For if you will accept me, I will be undaunted by samsara and will act for being's sake. I'll leave behind the evils of my past and ever after turn my face from them. Today my life has given fruit. This human state has now been well assumed. Today I take my birth in Buddha's line and have become the Buddha's child and heir. Defilements are not in the object, nor within the faculties, nor somewhere in between. And if not elsewhere, where is their abode, whence they inflict their havoc on the world? They are simply mirages, so take heart. Banish all your fear and strive to know their nature. Why suffer needlessly the pains of hell? When the urge arises in your mind to feelings of desire or angry hate, do not act. Be silent, do not speak, and like a log of wood, be sure to stay. There's nothing that does not grow light through habit and familiarity. Putting up with little cares, I'll train myself to bear with great adversity. When I am beleaguered by defilements, I will stand and face them in 1,000 ways. I'll not surrender to the host of the afflictions, but like a lion, I will stand amid a crowd of foxes. Thus, to banish all obscuring veils, I'll bend my mind from the mistaken path, and constantly upon the perfect object, I shall rest my mind in even meditation. My wealth of merit gathered in, with reverence but without conceptual target, when will I reveal this truth of emptiness to those who go to ruin through belief in real existence? And now, as long as space endures, as long as there are beings to be found, may I continue likewise to remain to drive away the sorrows of the world. There are a couple of these that I really that stand out to me visually. There's one, it's number 7, and this is talking. It says that it's called, the chapter is called diligence in the Padmakara translation, but many commentaries entitle this courageous effort. And when you think of the courage, say, of a lion, and so it's saying when we're beleaguered by my defilements, which is mean our afflictive emotions, our attachment, our desires, our anger, our all of these things that were triggered so often throughout the day by different circumstances and people and things like that. He says, just be as if you're a lion and you're just surrounded by a bunch of foxes which cannot do anything to you because you are so strong and so courageous. And that to me is a very helpful image, so that when something comes up which is going to trigger some of my afflictive emotions, I think of that image and it helps me quite a bit. And so if we think of these regularly, eventually we'll be able to gradually change and turn around our negative thoughts and negative actions and negative speech. Anyway, let's continue on then. So now we go to this final chapter.
I just put a link to download that in the chat.
Okay. Yeah.
So that
If somebody didn't get it in their email,
you didn't get it from email.
you can just put it on your phone.
You can grab it right now. Thank you, Tracy, for finding my entertaining.
So we'll start again. We'll go over more an explanation of dedication as we start this. The first stanza, and believe me, we're not going to do all of the stanzas. There's a lot on. There's a huge amount on all of the hell realms, and we've covered some of that in previous classes. And so I'm not going to go into all of that in detail. But what I've done is I've taken a particular stanzas and sort of the essence of what's being said, so that we can get through this all in one session. So in this concluding 10th chapter, Shantideva is dedicating all the roots of virtue that he has accumulated through the composition of this text and the transmission of the text. And the transmission means it's being transmitted to us as well. So Shantideva's merit is continuing to grow. And by us taking this on board, our merit will grow from studying this, from studying and practicing the way of the Bodhisattva as Shantideva has laid it out. It will only make our merit grow and increase. So in its entirety, the Bodhicharyavatara, the way of the Bodhisattva, contains the meaning of Buddha's teachings that lead sentient beings perfectly to the state of enlightenment through the process of the path of the Bodhisattva. And the 6 perfections and everything that is included in Shantideva's text, he has shown us the way to go about becoming enlightened. And it's quite clear if you know how to interpret it and how to read it. And that's what we've been trying to do over the past year with this text. And hopefully the videos are there, the study guides are there, and we can go back to them if we have some confusion about what is being said by Shantideva. As I said before, according to the Mahayana Buddhist tradition, it's extremely important to dedicate the merit, and there's a specific process to that. The first is that you have a motivation or an intention for any Dharma practice or action that you are about to engage in. And then yes, go ahead.
I just want to point out that any action that you do with the motivation of Dharma, so you can do ordinary things with the Dharma motivation.
Absolutely.
I just want to specify that, and it's not just when you read or study or pray.
No.
It can be when you're cleaning your toilets or driving to work or whatever.
Yeah, let me get to that, because if we generate the proper motivation before we start any activity, then that action can be something that will accumulate merit for us.
Right.
So our initial motivation for something that we do, whether it's a dharma, what we call dharma practice, or anything, any activity we have, our initial motivation will set the tone for what the outcome of that action will be. So if our initial motivation is not proper, even with a dharma even with a dharma action, what we're calling a dharma action, such as meditation or prayers or a class like this, if our motivation is simply for the pleasures of this life, in order to, maybe we could feel we'll have a better reputation or a better life, or some teachers may feel that they could make some money, or I mean, even this happens. Buddhist teachers can be caught up in the name and fame and all of that thing that can occur, and so that is an improper motivation. And what that means is that is not a dharma action at all. It's simply an action that's ego self-grasping. That's all it is. So we have to set that intention quite clearly in our minds, that the intention is for the benefit. May I attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. May every action I do be of benefit to sentient beings, and may I attain enlightenment so that I can be of ultimate benefit to them. So that I can really, truly help them in ways that I cannot help them now. And that is the proper motivation. So if we can do that, well, let me talk about that. There are three types of suffering. This is called the suffering of suffering, which is the suffering we're all aware of. It's the everyday, ordinary type of suffering. I have a headache. I'm, mentally disturbed by something. I'm not happy about this or that. That's called the suffering of suffering. Then there is the suffering of change, when we get what we think we want, or have what we want, and we lose it. It goes away. Our comfort goes away. Our wealth goes away. Our career goes away. Our family members go away. We feel that we've lost this. It's the suffering of change. Then the third kind of suffering is all pervasive suffering, and that's the suffering that's experienced by our mental and physical aggregates as long as we are trapped in this cycle of existence called samsara. So as long as we're in samsara, we're going to have this all pervasive suffering, because that is the nature of samsara. It is the ego self-grasping is always going to bring about suffering. So when we're this has to do now with our motivation. So if our motivation, like I said, if it's just for the purposes of making this life pleasurable, that's not even a dharma motivation. That's an ego self-grasping motivation. If our motivation is to gain a future rebirth as a human or some higher level within samsara, that is a better motivation. That is a dharma motivation, but it's only a motivation of the smallest scope. A higher motivation would be to have to be free, to practice dharma with the motivation to be free from suffering and to be liberated from cyclic existence. That is a higher motivation. That is a dharma motivation, and that is a motivation of the medium scope. But the highest motivation of all is the one motivation that we've been taught by our teachers. The Mahayana motivation is to attain enlightenment, go all the way to enlightenment. Get out of samsara, be free, I should say, be liberated from suffering, be liberated from cyclic existence, and attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. In that way, you can easily come back into cyclic existence, not be affected, not have the pervasive suffering of cyclic existence because you are an enlightened being, but you can be of enormous benefit to all those who are striving to become happy, who don't want to suffer, and are looking for a true path to that. And this is the highest motivation. This is the motivation that Shantideva is saying we should have. Yes?
I just want to point out that this is why when you have difficult things arise in your life, in your personal life or your work life, those things are training. In your future rebirth as a Buddha, it will come in handy to have dealt with, say, for example, a tyrannical boss, or an injustice in the legal or financial system, or all the wrongdoings that come upon your head and difficulties that you feel like you want to run away from. Instead of running away, think, oh, I'm in boot camp in training. It will serve me in future lifetimes to know how to deal with this,
Mhm.
to be familiar with the dynamics here.
Yeah, there is a sense in this,
Don't run away from your problems, in other words, and don't think you're gonna escape them by becoming enlightened.
No, we will escape our problems by becoming enlightened, for
We will
sure,
escape the suffering that we have.
something that
We
we
will
have.
not escape the situations of samsara.
Right, samsara will still be there, and it is our job then to help others become enlightened as well, to
Right.
get on
Well,
this
and that's
path.
the whole point of all of our paths, that, of course, we want to become enlightened, so that we can come back to samsara in whatever form, because we will have been enlightened.
Mhm.
That can then be of benefit to as many sentient beings as possible, and have the ability to switch from one form to another.
It's kind of amazing
I know,
to think about it.
yeah.
So, when we have the aspiration and the motivation to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings, dedication can become an amazing practice in our daily life. So when we wake up in the morning, we can make the dedication that every action of my body, speech, and mind that I take today is going to be for the benefit of all sentient beings, that I may become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings and help them become enlightened themselves. So you're then taking every single thing you do throughout your day and transforming it into this dharma kind of action. You know, may I be of benefit to my wife, may I be of benefit to my husband, my kids, to the animals out in the yard, all of this, everything you do, cleaning your house, everything you do can be part of this motivation. So even when it seems as if we have failed and we've succumbed to our afflictive emotions of whatever kind they be, anger, attachment. What we can do is we can make the intention at the beginning of the day, when these things come up, if I do fail, if I do get angry, if I have craving attachment, let me shine the light of Dharma on that, so that I understand the nature of what it is that I'm grasping at, so that I understand what ego self-grasping is, that it's only going to lead to suffering. Shining Dharma on that. And by that, just having that intention alone is going to turn around these afflictive emotions so that you begin to look at them, that you begin to analyze what's triggering them, what's making you, become angry, what is making you have this craving attachment, and you begin to really look at it. And that in itself becomes a Dharma action. So at the end of the day, you can dedicate that analysis that you made, and the way maybe you pulled back. Maybe like the lion surrounded by the foxes, you didn't react. You didn't let yourself be triggered. And that should be seen as a huge success on your path. And you should dedicate the merit of that at the end of the day, no matter how small it may seem.
Right.
You are dedicating that merit so that it will not be ruined by some other kind of anger that you have not, dealt with. So you can take anything like that and you can make it that motivation to be a benefit.
But the motivation is one thing, and you can have positive motivation and positive intent, but the action can still be against the Dharma.
No.
I don't think so.
No.
How do you mean that?
Wrong.
How do you mean that? No, explain,
Like
no, Chris.
Bodhisattvas, they'll say, like, they have this famous story where Buddha was in a previous lifetime before he was Buddha, you've probably heard this, he was a sailor on a boat, and he apprehended that, or he saw through his clairvoyance that this guy was gonna murder some people on the boat. So Buddha, knowing that this guy was about to do that, killed this guy to save those other lives, because he said, I'd rather I go to hell and because of this murder. If I kill him, I'll burn off some of his karma because he got killed, and then I'll go to hell and it'll all work out. I mean, they say lots of things like that.
Right,
Well,
I
that's
guess
where
my question maybe is, you can have an intent to be helpful, positive, be a benefit to others, etc. And then you take the action, and the action may not result in being seen as being helpful, benefit, or whatever. And then the question becomes, well, is the action the wrong thing to have done, or is the response you get the wrong thing, or am I working for or against the Dharma? You know, the Bodhisattva says, you know, you have to be very careful, because you can have good intent, but the action you can take, you can still think is positive towards the Dharma, but it can actually be working against the Dharma. And at least for me, I have no ability to clearly delineate, you know, I'm not enlightened enough or bright enough or whatever you want to call it, to know, oh, that action got the right intent, is the right action, even though the response that one might have obtained is not what you would expect from the action, but it's still the right action, versus, no, that's the wrong action, that's against the Dharma, you shouldn't have done it.
I mean, I would suggest that the action, if the intention and the action were to be of benefit and all that stuff, if you get a different reaction, it is not necessarily you. It could be the other person still needs to work on whatever they're dealing with, and they might have had a different reaction because maybe they had an attachment to a different outcome, or something else is going on within them that they're still attached to, and therefore had a result that maybe you're interpreting as not ideal, and therefore you're interpreting your actions were not received and in line with the Dharma.
Right,
I don't
all
know.
I'm saying is, as a human being,
Yeah,
to me, it's impossible to know which of all
This
the
is
above
why
is
you want to
possible.
Yeah.
develop single pointed concentration and meditation on wisdom, so that you develop clairvoyance, and I'm not joking.
no, that's the whole point.
Yeah, Brian, it
We
is
have to
possible.
ultimately develop clairvoyance so that we can be better, but the Dalai Lama tells a story. That I think is relevant to this. He was meeting with one of the old elderly monks who had been striving. To develop single pointed concentration. And had been working very many years. And he was unable to do it because of his physical limitations as an old man. And the Dalai Lama, was trying to comfort him, saying, don't worry about it. You've made great progress, you've planted these seeds, you've developed to a certain, to quite a high degree. You may not get all the way there, but fear not, in your next life, you'll be that much further along. Well, that monk, this is a story from the Dalai Lama that he told. That monk went off and killed himself so that he would get reborn and have a new body. Was the Dalai Lama wrong? No. When we do an action, I'm going to just speculate. Let's say you set up a symposium on Buddhism and the whole thing backfires and it's a bloody mess, right? Your intention is all that matters. What everybody else's karma is, whatever else comes
Yeah.
down, your intention to spread the Dharma, to help others see through their mistaken way of viewing reality, is not your business. Your business is your business, your pure intention. You strive to have deeper and deeper understanding of wisdom, and you literally strive to have clairvoyance, and you literally, this is the path, because you're absolutely right. We can do things all the time that backfire.
This even happened to the Buddha. If you recall the stories that we talked about of Buddha and his cousin Devadatta. Devadatta, Buddha was an enlightened being, omniscient, the whole deal, walking on the planet, right? Devadatta was extremely jealous of him. And so no matter what the Buddha did, Devadatta was always trying to undermine him, always trying to kill him. It was like, like I said, it's like Coyote and Roadrunner,
Yeah.
and always trying to, set a bomb on, destroy the Buddha. So no matter what the Buddha did, he could not stop Devadatta from that. And the only way ultimately that we learn to turn towards the Dharma is through our own suffering. Eventually, each one of us comes to a point in our life where we say, I've had enough of this suffering, there must be a better way. And so that's when somebody will turn to the Dharma. And I think this is why Buddhism never tries to go out and recruit, have new, people who come and join Buddhism, and they don't try to grow the numbers. It's simply a question of when somebody is ready, when they've had enough, and they want to find a pathway that is stable, truly stable. Then they will look at the Dharma. It may not work for everybody, but you know, that's just something to know.
I guess all I was trying to say is, you know, that having good intention is absolutely essential, having the right intention is essential. But I don't know, for me, trying to decide, you know, the intention is a part of it, but then the intention leads to some action and some outcome of that action. And I can have the right intention, but I could take potentially the wrong action, even with the right intention, and knowing when it's the right action versus the wrong action.
Well, in that case, especially as you know, as we're sort of starting out on this path, what I would suggest is go back and thoroughly review the first stage of practice that the Buddha recommended for everybody who's on the path, is to look at these. It has to do with ethics. So to really familiarize yourself with the 10 virtuous actions, you know, 3 of body, 4 of speech, 3 of mind. Really familiarize yourself
You're
with
taking on, Brian,
the negative
you're sort of
aspects of
taking
that.
on the reaction and the response of others.
And that's not what you
It
should be
feels to
doing.
me like embedded in your.
Well, I don't know if I would say I'm taking it on. I am only questioning how I or anyone else would know that the action that they take is the correct action, even though the intention of the action is correct. That's really my question. It's not that I own what happens or the result, because I can't control the result. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I teach students all the time and they don't like the way I grade it. Well, you know, then that's just the way it goes. I mean, you know, I can't control how you react, and you know, you
Or the
react
effort of
wrong.
work that
What
they
do you
put into
think
the
makes an
course.
action right or wrong? You're implying that the result is what makes the action right or wrong.
No, I'm not, well, I don't know if I'm applying that. I guess when I think of the practices of the Bodhisattva, there's one of the 37 that really speaks to the idea that, you know, you have to be very careful about the intention and action, because even though you could think you are doing something that is aligned with the Dharma, you could actually be doing something against the Dharma. So that leads me to think, okay, well, how do I know that? How do I know when I'm doing something aligned with the Dharma? How do I know when it's not aligned with the Dharma? How do I know?
What do you think the answer is?
I don't know the answer. That's why I'm asking the question. Are you learned people
Well,
here? Because I
I
don't.
think,
Well-
ultimately, again, it always comes back in my mind to intention. If your intention and motivation is to be of help and benefit, for example, your students, they're not participating, they didn't do this assignment well, whatever it might be, that when you review their effort and their work, you decide to give them a B+ versus an A. Well, you know, your intention is to show them that they need to do better, they need to focus more, whatever. Your intention is to be honest and give them proper feedback so that they can take that and learn, maybe ask a question, why I got that grade. You can explain it to them. So I think ultimately, motivation to be of benefit, the intention to be of benefit, mind, body, speech, period. That's it. And if you always have that, I'm saying this, I'm doing this, I'm acting in this way to be of benefit, you're good.
Yeah, I mean,
And everything else is karma.
the
Their
particular.
karma, collective, I mean, whatever it is.
The particular situation that it seems like we're talking about here reminds me of giving a spoiled child whatever they want. And when that doesn't actually help them.
No.
And so when you sort of put restrictions on the spoiled child and they throw a temper tantrum, this is just what they do. It's not like you did something bad to that child. You're actually helping them. You're actually being a benefit up to them. So these students, if they think they can just have a free pass through life, you're not helping them by doing that.
Yeah.
So if they get angry, if their parents get angry, if the administrators get angry because, well, the parents aren't going to support the university because you didn't pass them.
Right.
Still, you're being of benefit to them, because in the long run, this will not help them deal with their life, to think that they can just have a free pass. What it will do is they will become corrupt. It will actually, you would cause more harm. Because they would think, yeah, the way I get through life is stealing, cheating, lying,
Manipulating power.
manipulating power, and we see this. This is a huge problem. So the intention that you have is very good, and I think. How many more years do you have there?
Well, it's not, I mean, that's
This
just
year
an
and
example,
next.
but it's a more general question, because I wanna make sure as best I can, without being enlightened, without being, understanding emptiness, without knowing wisdom, without, I mean, because I wanna make sure that whatever action I take has not only the right intention, but is the right action. And all I'm saying is, I often question, is that the right action, even though I think my intention is good?
Yeah.
Even if the response is not what I would have predicted or whatever, but
Mhm.
is it the right action? Or is it that I took the wrong action and that's the reason that, the response is whatever it was?
No, their
And I'm
response,
working-
everybody's response is theirs.
And I'm working, in a way that's not consistent with the Dharma, but actually acting against the Dharma in either principle or in practice. And
Yeah,
Well-
I think about this a lot in a certain way, which is I will do it perfectly when I'm enlightened and not until then. So I'm gonna make mistakes. I may be acting, I mean, this is, I think, the humility we have to.
Hmm,
You won't do it perfectly, Brian, until you're enlightened.
right.
You will not avoid mistakes until you're
well,
enlightened.
again,
That is the
believe
answer
that.
to
I
your
agree
question.
that. I agree with that, but I'd like to make fewer mistakes and more mistakes.
And as you study and practice
will.
and meditate, we make fewer and fewer mistakes.
I mean, there are two
There's no
basic things.
magic bullet,
Yeah.
other than your continued.
There are two basic things in Buddhism. Do not harm, and when you can be a benefit. So that's it. That's from your side, that's what you're doing. The way, as Tracy was saying, the way it may play out, you may have no control over that. And what can you do? But at least from your side, you were not intending any harm, and you were only trying to be a benefit. We have to be careful that the actions we are taking are not, especially when they're affecting others in a big way, that they are not coming out of our ego-based self. And that's where the real vigilance, the real carefulness has to be exerted to sort of distinguish the difference between what every action that comes that the ego takes is coming from the desire to be happy and the desire not to suffer. The job of us when we're on the Bodhisattva path is to understand what actually is the cause of happiness and what is the cause of suffering, and to understand that the cause of happiness is rooted in a thorough understanding of the way nature, the nature of reality and how reality works. Whereas the ego, we have to understand that the ego's understanding of what happiness is rooted in delusion, a delusional view of how things exist. That things exist, as we've been talking about, is in this the 9th chapter, that things exist the way they appear, inherently out there from their own side, and I need them, and anything that gets in my way of that is I have to get rid of. This is what is all the problems you're talking about with the education system now, and the funding and all of that, the problems with all the wars that occur. It's all ego. It's all, I will not be happy until this problem is out of my way, and we generate afflictive emotions because of that. So our job is to understand what actually is the true cause of happiness, what is the true cause of suffering, and to clearly distinguish between those two, so that when we are dealing with others, we can see, they're coming from a particular, nothing but ego self-grasping here. They are mistaken. So you just sort of pull back. What can you do? You pull back and you just intend to help them, be a benefit of them. Say like my sister, who was a terrible alcoholic, all you could do is just love her. That's
Right.
all you could do, because she was going to destroy herself.
Right,
There was nothing that and nobody could help that, but you can just love them and wish that they have a better rebirth, you
right.
know? I mean, what can you do? So that's, I mean, that would be my answer to that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so now, what Shantideva goes on is he goes on to a dedication for the sake of others. He says in stanza 2, may beings everywhere who suffer torment in their minds and bodies have, by virtue of my merit, joy and happiness in boundless measure. So here's where we were talking about those 3 types of suffering. Suffering of suffering, the suffering of change, and all pervasive suffering. So what we need to do, we have the wish, but by the virtue of our merit from our practice and study of the Bodhisattva way, that beings who reside in all directions and in all realms of existence be freed from their suffering of suffering that torments them in their minds and bodies. We hold compassion in our hearts and minds for them, and wishing that the beings can be free from sorrow and its causes. And we also think of beings everywhere with loving kindness, and we wish that they can have physical and mental well-being and perfect happiness. So then in the 3rd stanza, he says, as long as they may linger in samsara, may their joy be undiminished, may they taste of unsurpassed beatitude in constant and unbroken continuity. So here, he's talking about the suffering of change, and we make the wish that all beings, we dedicate our merit to free beings from the suffering of change by wishing that through the power of our virtue, through practicing the Bodhisattva way, all beings who are prosperous, who have healthy bodies and happy minds, will never lose their good fortune for as long as they remain in cyclic existence, that they will not have that suffering of change. And then as far as all pervasive suffering goes, like I said before, this will be with us, a part of our mental and physical aggregates for as long as we're in samsara. So what we want to do is make the dedication to free beings from the kinds of suffering. It consists in the wish that the infinite multitude of beings existing in every dimension of space be free from all pervasive suffering and attain the unceasing bliss of the nirvana of bodhisattvas. In other words, make the wish that all sentient beings be freed from cyclic existence. And may I help them to do this. And that would be how to be free of all pervasive suffering. He said that when we understand more and more about karma and cause and effect, we'll see that a cyclic existence continually brings about suffering. That's the pervasive nature of cyclic existence, because it arises out of ignorance and the ego self-grasping that comes from that. And so when we understand cause and effect, we'll realize for ourselves that we want to create the cause to be free from this, to be free from this cycle of existence, so that we can actually be of benefit, that we won't be trapped in this, we won't be of it, but we can be in it and we can be of benefit. And that comes down to understanding karma and the steps that we need to take in order to get there. And the steps we need to take are outlined by Shantideva in this Bodhisattva way. So now Shantideva goes into stanzas to talk about pacifying the sufferings of the 3 lower realms. And he goes through stanzas 4 through 17. And of course, I'm not going to get into these because it will take far too much time. But he talks about the suffering experienced in the 3 lower realms of hell beings, hungry ghosts, and animals. And he describes the pain and suffering of those hell realms, the insatiable hunger and dissatisfaction of the hungry ghosts, and the fears and sufferings of the animals in the animal realm. And what Shantideva envisions is this transcendent transformation of that due to the due to the virtue and the merit of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. So although we as normal human beings can't see, you know, the plight of beings that are in hell realms, the kind of hell realms being talked about here, we can observe the animal realm, and we can see the suffering and the fear and the desperation that exists in animals, aquatic animals and terrestrial animals. So that basically they are, it's eat or be eaten. They're constantly devouring one another. They're being entrapped. They're being hunted down for food. They're being, if you think of the way animals are maintained and then slaughtered for food currently, it is terrible.
It's like I just don't wanna eat anything.
It's terrible, right?
Just, like, can't even eat anything.
They are, you know, hunters will kill animals for the sheer pleasure of it.
Right.
So the animal realm, I mean, our pets, they're like they might as well be in the God realm of animals. I mean,
Right.
their lives are so cushy. I can see them easily going to a human rebirth. But for most animals, the animals in the wild, it's a nightmare out there. And so what we can do is in any way we can be of benefit to the animals, the wild animals that are around us, the insects, the deer, the raccoons, the squirrels, the birds, in any way, the foxes. Try to be of benefit to them in ways that will help them, that will have meaning for them. And if you can, like Lama Zopa Rinpoche always did this when he was around animals. When he would go to the zoo, when he would see wild animals, he would get as close to them. If he could whisper in their ear, he would. He would whisper mantras and motivation and dedicating his merit to them, to help them have a better rebirth. And this is kind of the way we should feel as we develop on this path. We will see a transformation in ourselves as we do this. You know, I no longer will I put poison in ant piles anymore.
Right.
I just wish them well, and you know,
Well,
and you know, more, even more round, you know.
right.
So you know, when you get down to it, it comes down to what matters, what really matters. You know, does the happiness of sentient beings matter, or does the perfect law matter?
Right.
And that's a decision we have to make for ourselves, you know. And when we're talking about a hellish existence, we don't have to look any further than the planet we live on to see that happening. There are countless children, women, and men who are suffering unbelievably in this world. They're homeless people, people who don't have enough food, who are living on the streets, who don't have enough clothes. This exists right now. It exists in the country we live in. It exists in the state we live in. Then we have children, women, and men who are trafficked, human trafficking, either for enforced labor, which is a form of slavery, or sex slaves, or commercial sexual exploitation, or worse. It's going on now. It is going on in this country and in other countries around the world. And that, for those people, it is hell on earth. They are living in hell. So we don't have to, you know, go too far to realize that the hell realms that are being talked about exist among us, with us. And so what we want to do is to dedicate, I mean, do what we can. Do not contribute to it. Do not contribute to it. And dedicate any merit that we have gained through this practice, that these beings, these children, these men, these women, these animals, all of them may have instantly be freed from their karma. I mean, because it is due to karma that animals exist in the realm they're existing. It is due to karma, as horrible as this is and difficult as it is for us to acknowledge and accept this. Those children who are being are part of human trafficking right now are experiencing the effects of their own karma.
Right.
They were once doing something very similar to what they're experiencing now. And the perpetrators who now are trafficking humans are going to experience the same thing over and over
Right.
again. So the whole situation is tragic. And what we want to do is develop the motivation that we can become enlightened so that we can be of the best benefit, so that we know exactly what we can do to help these beings. And it will be one by one. It will be one by one. But at least we can think, may the merit that I accumulate through this practice, may it help to instantly free these people from their negative karma. May they have a fortunate rebirth. May they meet the Dharma. May they meet something that will help them move toward a more positive way of existence. And eventually,
Break that.
break that pattern,
Right.
break that pattern.
Mhm.
It's overwhelming, really, and so the job of a bodhisattva is huge, and we can't go around and fix everything,
Yeah.
but we can fix ourselves, and eventually we can be of much more benefit to others. The wiser we are, the more compassionate we are, the more loving we are. We can be of more benefit, and that's what we're aiming for here.
Right.
Christopher?
Yeah.
I'd like to just tell a little bit about a recent trip. We flew to Denver before Christmas, and there were a few seats open on the plane around us, and a group of people came on board and didn't know how to read their seat numbers or know anything. And it ended up, we were sitting by some Venezuelan refugees who had walked here, walked through Colombia and Panama and taken a train through Mexico because it was too expensive or too dangerous to walk through Mexico. And had somehow gotten here. They didn't speak any English. They didn't read any English. They had nothing but the jackets they'd given them at the migrant shelter here, and put them on a plane. And it just so profoundly made me see that there are people so much worse off than anything I see in my daily life, which is, employed people living in houses. So I was able to speak Spanish with them, and I ended up giving them, we'd taken peanut butter sandwiches, we gave them our sandwiches and all of our airplane food, and I gave them all the money in my wallet. And I got this guy's phone number. But the fact is, they had to have somebody to meet them when they got there, and the person that was going to meet them had not been able to get a job and couldn't meet them. And so they were going to walk to a migrant shelter in Denver in the cold weather. And I just want to call and see if they're okay. But then I have this feeling that if they don't have a sponsor, it may expose them to somebody and they'll get sent back. And it's a kind of a dilemma of how much risk do I put them in and what could I do anyway? But anyway, I mean, I didn't even have to leave home to see that.
Right.
And they're the lucky ones that, had a sponsor and had a flight paid for. Yeah, I mean, they're just invisible, helpless people. And I don't know what was in their karma and what was in the government's karma of Venezuela, but anyway, I'm just kind of speaking of this. It's kind of, in a way, shaken my sense that the suffering was limited to the Tibetans, and we talk so much about what they've gone through in crossing the Himalayas, but it's not different here. And do you have any ideas for how to deal with that sense of helplessness?
Yeah, I mean, this is what brings one to Buddhism, actually, and to deal with the sense of helplessness. Number one, be kind, just as you were, kind and helpful when you're with those people. If you have money in your cash in your wallet and you can give it to them, give it to them. And don't worry about what they're going to do with it. You help as you can, when you can, but there's no way we can fix samsara like this. The Buddha couldn't.
I can't fix it myself.
Right.
No.
Even the Buddha cannot fix it like that. What if it could be done, it would have been done long ago.
It's each of us.
So each of us have to do this. Each of us have to walk this path where we develop our heart, we develop our love, we develop our kindness, we develop our compassion. And all of that leads then to developing our mind, developing our wisdom. Because without the wisdom, without that wisdom that understands how things actually exist, what's going on, our compassion, our love will be very unstable.
You know, and the ripple effect of the generosity and kindness and compassion that you showed them while you did have the opportunity to be with them physically, they will remember you. They will remember your kindness. They will remember your generosity. And in some way, at some point in time, when they have those extra means, even maybe they'll just give of themselves that generosity and kindness towards the next person or people they run into, because they will remember how kind that woman and man were on that plane, how they helped us just as much as they could, and they'll remember that, and it will ripple forward. And that's how we do it in the frame of mind and form that we are currently in, not as Buddhas yet. You know, all we can do is use our human compassion, our human love and kindness and generosity as we can,
Yeah.
and that's it.
It also, I mean, what you're saying, it can help those people who are in very bad situations have some faith that there is goodness out there among other human beings, and that it's not all just this terrible, cruel, awful world, but there are beings who can be of help, who will help, who are loving and compassionate, and that can give hope, I believe. You know, we can't take everybody in. You know,
Well, you know, I thought of it, but taking in 7 people seemed a lot.
yeah, I mean, it's enough to deal with their families, to help them and take them in, and it's so we do what we can, and it's a heartbreaking situation, but that's samsara. It's heartbreaking. I mean, this is why, I mean, you can often see when His Holiness the Dalai Lama begins to talk about this, he's moved to tears by the situation, and all we can do is better ourselves so that we can, with the idea that it's not just for ourselves, it's for this whole interconnected system that we are part of, that we are going to make the whole system of consciousness and form better for everyone by doing this. And that's our intention and motivation,
Yeah.
Well, my best thought has been that we need to give Mexico back their land below the Nueces River, which was annexed late through a war with Santa Anna, who was in cahoots with the U.S. president, and then we don't have to guard the border river. Let's let them have it.
Well,
it was theirs to start with.
Yeah, we're just
we're not in control
chairs
of
on the deck chairs on the Titanic. I mean,
Right.
samsara is like that, and there will always be something.
Yeah.
I think, for me, the biggest tragedy that I'm aware of in all of this is that so many millions of individuals make their way here thinking that they're gonna get a lot more help than they can get. And, we've seen this with the monks. They think that there's still this idea that the streets are lined with gold.
Oh.
I mean, the monks have all shared this problem, that it's a big wake-up call when they actually get here to realize that in the end, we have to take responsibility for our own safety and food and shelter. I mean, ultimately, there's it's a very hard lesson that a lot of migrants are learning now. We also sat next to, they were also from Venezuela. When we took a flight to San Francisco, it was a family of 4, a father and a mother and 2 kids. I sat next to the father and the mother behind us.
I think that was it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, sorry about that. It was, we had, it was a similar feeling, but in their case, they felt ready to roll up their sleeves and, I also spoke Spanish, so, I was able to converse.
Well, I found it very hard to understand the Venezuelan speech. It was very fast and very few consonants to my ear.
Yeah, that's why I love Peru, the mountains of Peru, they speak slowly. Cause it's not their first language either, so they're,
Well, that's curious to me that the Tibetan monks who come here also are shocked by how wealthy the country is, but how little equality there is in the wealth, that
Well,
it's not easy just to come here and survive.
Lama Pasang literally decided to become a US citizen because he felt that he would be able to financially help his mother and father. Because there's so much money here that somehow he would get enough money to be able to send to them.
And he's done what he could,
Yeah,
Could
And he
you-
has
done it, yeah,
but, he's working in a restaurant, or he was.
yeah.
Anyway, blah, blah.
Anyway,
okay,
samsara has its ups and downs, we'll say.
It
Absolutely.
has its downs and downs.
it says that it's an illusion of up, actually, because it just keeps, going around. So it's interesting what this dedication is bringing up, I mean, it's forcing us to look at the problem of samsara, the problem of cyclic existence, how it cannot actually be solved within cyclic existence itself, within the nature of cyclic existence. The problem will not be solved. The problem is only going to be solved when we see that the illusory or the delusional nature of what cyclic existence is, and work to remove those delusions ourselves, and then to help others remove those delusions.
Is it Shantideva that tells the story about an omniscient person came upon a scene where there was a mother holding a baby and the father was cooking fish in a frying pan and
Oh, yeah, the mother,
No,
the mother was
I mean,
cooking in the.
It wasn't Shantideva, it was one of the Buddha's disciples, Shariputra.
oh, okay, anyway.
Shariputra.
Yeah.
So like
that's
the
a great-
father was frying fish that had been his mother in a previous life, and the mother was holding a baby and coddling it who had been the enemy who had killed her in a previous life. And Shariputra just said, samsara is such a laugh.
Right, it's
Yeah.
such a.
So that being on the airplane, blah, blah.
What they say is to recognize, since this is apparently since beginningless time, this has been going on, that everyone we meet, we've had a strong connection with at some time or other. I mean, everything is interconnected. We can see that. We can logically understand that. We've talked about this. Everything is interdependent. Everything is interconnected, including consciousnesses. And so when we meet with somebody, it's they say it could have been somebody as close to you as your mother or
Right.
father in some other lifetime, as some other realm, some other kind of being.
Right.
But to recognize that and to feel a closeness and a connection to them when we are with them, and do whatever we can to ease their way at the time that we are with them. If we have an opportunity like this, where they're actually a little band of people who are interested in overcoming the delusions and seeing what the nature of reality is, how wonderful is this? We should rejoice that we're doing this, that we have the interest. It doesn't matter how many, but it's just amazing to me that we have the interest. It's a wonderful thing, and we can help one another. So, then Shantideva goes through more stanzas, and he dedicates his merit to relieve the sufferings of humans and gods, and fulfill their wishes. So he goes through all kinds of things like, may all humans and gods be relieved of any suffering they experience. May the blind see and the deaf hear, and sickness be absent from the world, and on, many, many wonderful things like this. You can read them.
World peace.
Things like, well, yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, I love this one. May the children and the elderly and all those who are without protection have pure celestial beings as their guardians. I mean, to even imagine, like Anne, to imagine with this family that you saw, or these people that you saw, imagine that there are, you know, beings guiding them and helping them. They're with them.
Yeah.
Not necessarily human beings, but ones
Just
that can
guides.
help them and guide them and bring them to a safe place for themselves, you know. That's something we can do. And we can,
Well, to your point earlier, Christopher, and remember, everything is also, their journey is their karma.
their karma.
You know, they're in Venezuela experiencing what they're experiencing there. They're then needing to leave Venezuela. They're now on this journey because they need to leave. They're experiencing what they're experiencing along the way because it's their karma to have these various experiences. You know, it's their karma to have your generosity and kindness and compassion shared. You know, we can't see the whole picture because we're not omniscient.
Yeah, it's
yet.
also, you know, your karma to have met them. It's, you know,
And to give you an opportunity to be generous and kind and compassionate, and then their opportunity to be able to receive your kindness and compassion and generosity.
I mean, Venerable Rabina talks about this, and we should, when we see somebody who's begging on the street, you know, realize that all of a sudden you have made, there's karma, it's your karma. It's your karma to see these people. At one point, you must have been begging, and somebody either helped you or they didn't.
Right.
And so Robina says, give whatever you can, be as generous as you can, and don't even question what they're going to do with it. Just be generous, just be giving, and wish them well. You know, give what you can.
Mhm.
And so that in itself is a practice. And, you know, and thinking of karma helps. It helps. And when we think of the things, terrible things that may have happened to us in our own lives, if we see it as a karmic, if you could put it, maybe debt being paid,
Right.
then the whole idea of perpetrator and victim takes on a completely different role.
Because
And you can overcome, you can actually think well of whoever it was in your life who harmed you, and be glad that you were able to, you know, overcome and work off that negative karma that you had.
Mhm.
And then just wish everyone involved well.
Right.
You know, don't hold on to it. So karma, an understanding of karma is quite helpful in all of this.
Mhm.
It really is. So he says, through the merit gained by study and practicing the Bodhisattva path, may every being never be separated from bodhicitta and always engage in the actions of a bodhisattva. May multitudes of bodhisattvas live in every land with many disciples, and may the sound of Dharma be perceived by each and every living being, and may they always come into the presence of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. The sound of Dharma.
Molly and her squeaky
Yeah.
boy.
So then he goes into stanzas 42 through 47. This is a special dedication for ordained monks and nuns, and I will read these ones because what we can do here is we can think of our own teachers who are ordained monks, ordained nuns. You know, Venerable Rabina comes to mind, Geshe Drapa, Geshe Nima, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Lama Pasang, all of those teachers who have touched our lives.
Mhm.
You know, we can think of them as we listen to these stanzas.
And what are the stanzas again?
This is 42 through 47. In monasteries, temples, and the like, may reading and reciting widely flourish. May harmony prevail among the Sangha. May its purposes be all fulfilled. May ordained monks intent upon the practice find perfect places for retreat and solitude, abandon every vagrant thought, and meditate with trained and serviceable minds. May nuns have all their wants supplied. May quarreling and spite be strange to them. Let all who have embraced monastic life uphold a pure and unimpaired observance. May those who break their discipline repent, and always may they strive to cleanse away their faults. And thus may they acquire a fortunate rebirth wherein to practice stainless discipline. May wise and learned beings be revered and always be sustained by alms. May they be pure in mind, and may their fame spread far and wide. May these beings never languish in the lower realms. May pain and hardship be unknown to them. With bodies greater than the gods, may they attain enlightenment without delay. And this is thinking along these lines about our own teachers is a wonderful way to dedicate our merit to them, and gratitude for what they have. Honestly, without the teachers, we wouldn't have met any of this, none of it. It would be completely out of our radar. It has to have been the teachers who did it. It wasn't just, in the newspaper. It was a person, it was somebody. In our case, it was Venerable Ramita. We were looking for something else to listen to on the internet while we were doing our work and found a Buddhist channel, and here was this nun with a very, very sharp tongue and sharp wit, and she was explaining things in such a way that was so clear that we felt now is the time we must now find the Dharma. And this is how we found Lama Pasang, how Kapita found Lama Pasang.
Right.
But the first, it was hearing it from an actual ordained nun. It wasn't reading it in a book. So it's all due to our teachers and the kindness of our teachers that we are on this path now. And so we should dedicate our merit when we can, in any way we can, to their benefit and ongoing benefit, whether they have passed on or not.
Right.
Yes.
Wherever they're at.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now he makes a dedication of virtue for the sake of perfecting the supreme goal, which would be a liberation from samsara, attainment of nirvana, or enlightenment. So he dedicates stanzas 48 through 50 to all beings throughout the universe, bodhisattvas, and other beings such as Pratyeka Buddhas and Shravakas, that they may perfect their supreme goals of liberation from cyclic existence, achieve nirvana, and attain enlightenment. We talked about this briefly. A Pratyeka Buddha, it means solitary realizer, or a solitary Buddha. And this is someone who is a practitioner of the Hinayana level who attains the cessation of suffering without relying on a teacher. They attain it themselves, and they attain a kind of nirvana for themselves. Shravaka it means hearer, and that's someone who first hears the instructions of the Buddha, and then from there on meditates on these instructions and gains insight and achieves nirvana and liberation from cyclic existence. So he's in these stanzas that he's wishing that they may have unimagined bliss, enjoy undimmed and constant happiness. May the bodhisattvas now fulfill their high intention for the sake of wanderers. And may the hearers and the Pratyeka Buddhas gain their perfect happiness. Then he goes into a dedication of virtue for oneself. So in this case, he's talking about dedication that he's making. He's dedicating his own merit for what he has done in composing this text. He's dedicating the merit he's accumulated through the virtue of composing this text and through the kindness of Manjushri. Manjushri is the bodhisattva of wisdom and insight. In Vajrayana or Tantric Buddhism, Manjushri is considered a meditational deity and a fully enlightened Buddha. So Manjushri has appeared to Shantideva. Manjushri appeared to Tsongkhapa. Manjushri will appear to beings who are on a high level of the path and give them instructions on wisdom and insight. So the instructions on wisdom and insight that we were getting, which were amazing in the 9th chapter from Shantideva, these are coming through this being Manjushri, who embodies wisdom and insight. His Holiness just gave an empowerment, a Manjushri empowerment, the other night, and it's the more we progress along this path and understand the value and the value of wisdom, the value of insight, the importance of it, how nothing none of the compassion, none of the loving kindness will have any meaning without a true understanding of this wisdom way. Then we will really make a strong connection to Manjushri. Manjushri will become very important. And the monks taught us this prayer early on, the Manjushri mantra, which is Oma Rapatsanadi, Oma Rapatanadi, Oma Rapatanadi, Oma Rapatanadi. And you say that over and over, visualizing Manjushri is with you. And it became the more I personally get into the practice, the more powerful that mantra is becoming, and the more I'm feeling a definite presence when I say the mantra. It's very powerful. I just wanted to mention that because he's talking about Manjushri here. So when we listen to these following verses, we can also dedicate the merit we've gained from studying, practicing Shantideva's text in a similar way to how he does this. So here's stanza 51. And until through Manjushri's perfect kindness, I attain the ground of perfect joy. Perfect joy is the name of one of the first of the 10 Bodhisattva levels called bhumis. So he says, until I attain the ground of perfect joy, may I remember all my lives and enter into the monastic state. So he's saying, may I not forget this life that I have now, and may we not forget our now the teachers that we have, our connection to the Dharma, so that in our next life we can continue, on this path to the Dharma. Maybe at some point we will become ordained in some way. Who knows? But this is what Shantideva is saying. May I remember all my lives and enter into the monastic state. Thus may I abide, sustained by simple, ordinary fare, and in every life obtain a dwelling place in perfect solitude. Whenever I desire to gaze on him or put to him the slightest question, may I behold with unobstructed sight my own protector Manjushri. To satisfy the needs of beings dwelling in the 10 directions, to the margins of the sky, may I reflect in all my deeds the perfect exploits of Manjushri. And now, as long as space endures, and as long as space endures, and as long as there are beings to be found, may I continue likewise to remain to drive away the sorrows of the world. The pains and sorrow of all wandering beings, may they ripen wholly on myself, and may the virtuous company of Bodhisattvas always bring about the happiness of beings. Sorry, folks. My throat chakra.
Speaking the truth.
So now he makes a dedication for the flourishing of the Buddha's doctrine. This is the second to the last stanza, so we're there. He says, may the doctrine, the Dharma, the Buddha Dharma, the only cure for sorrow, the source of every bliss and happiness, be blessed with wealth, upheld with veneration, and throughout a vast continuance of time endure. And then the last stanza is he's recognizing kindness and he's prostrating. And now to Manjushri I prostrate, whose kindness is the wellspring of my good intent. And to my virtuous friends, these are our teachers, I also bow, whose inspiration gave me the strength to grow. So Shantideva prostrates to Manjushri, through whose kindness he developed this precious awakened heart and mind of bodhicitta, and he received the opportunity to practice the 6 perfections. This is ridiculous, guys. But I'm feeling this about my own teachers, and I'm feeling this about Manjushri. Through Shantideva's practice, he developed the wisdom that enabled him to compose this treasured text on the perfect path that leads to the attainment of Buddhahood. He also prostrates to his other spiritual guides, his teachers, through whose kindness he received ordination and was inspired to develop the wisdom of listening to the Dharma, contemplating the Dharma, and meditating on the Dharma, a process which strengthened and increased all his good qualities. And that is a process which will strengthen and increase all our good qualities too. So the first thing is, when we hear a teacher, like when we first heard Robina, we were listening to this, and then we contemplate, we thought about it. And then the process of meditation is that you actually, you sort of make it part of your mind. You make it the way you think. And the Dharma becomes part of your being. So this process of listening, contemplating, and meditating is extremely important, and it will continue to strengthen our Dharma practice, and we will continue to grow in our Dharma practice by this listening, contemplating, and meditating. And remember, meditation means, the word is gom in Tibetan, and it means familiarizing ourselves with these concepts. We just don't hear them once, and we just don't think about them once, but we familiarize ourselves with them so that they become habits of our mind. And this is how, on a daily basis, we can continue to grow and flourish in the Dharma. So this 10th chapter explains in details the Shantideva's how he dedicates, how he dedicates to others his body, his resources, and the roots of all his virtue. And so this dedication there, it serves as a detailed example of the perfection of generosity. How to perfect this the generosity is the generosity of sharing the teachings and sharing them with others in a way that is meaningful to them, and that will actually help to transform their lives. And this is what our teachers have done with us. And it's stunning and amazing to me that this has happened, and I thank Geshe Nima from the bottom of this heart that he suggested we do this. I believe that.
And I think we all, when I first met him and listened to him, I don't know how many years at that point I had been practicing, but quite some, not as long as you guys, but there was just something about him that hit me. And, that's what motivated me to take my Bodhisattva vows with him.
Yeah.
I just felt that connection. And then asked him to be my guru, and he said yes.
That connection will always stay with you.
Exactly.
It will always stay with you.
Yeah.
And as you progress and you have visualizations, the kind of visualizations that one goes through in different kinds of sadhanas,
Right.
those teachers will be there.
Yeah.
And it's powerful and very meaningful.
Yeah.
And it's a source of comfort, really.
Mhm.
To know that there's somebody on your side, somebody who's going to help you,
Right.
and is helping you so that you can help others. So
Exactly.
you feel like you really are part of a lineage.
Right.
And I've talked about this kind of image of samsara is like an ocean, and then there's the shore of enlightenment, and on that shore of enlightenment are the Buddhas and all the Bodhisattvas, and they're forming a human link
Right.
that's going out
Connecting
into the ocean to grab your hand and make you part of this lineage.
Right.
And so our job is to take their hand.
Right.
Incidentally, related to that, we talk about the Mahayana as so this lineage, let me put it more directly. As you become more connected to the lineage, you become as strong a link in the chain is that all those Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that we read about, the lineage won't exist without you, in other words. The Mahayana is made up of, it's not a place or a thing. The Mahayana is the consciousnesses that have made it the purpose of their existence, to be of benefit.
So like you're saying, that's absolutely
In
right.
the ultimate way,
Right.
It's a living lineage. It's a living link and a growing lineage. And so by us taking entering into this lineage, we are growing into becoming
A link.
a link,
For someone
a link
else.
for someone else. And it doesn't mean we have to be fully enlightened in order to be that link to someone
Right.
else. Because at the beginning of this link is the enlightened beings, are the
Right.
enlightened beings. And so and we all eventually are going there. So it's a living, growing lineage, and we are part of it.
Right.
And an important part of it. It's good to think that way.
Absolutely.
It gives you a sense of not only connection, but responsibility.
Yeah, I mean.
Responsibility to carry this forward.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And to be that strong link.
yeah. To do whatever we can to be the best link possible.
Right.
And it'll take time, of course.
Yeah.
But, okay, so now we're going to dedicate the merit. Dedicate the merit to
Thank you,
this
Chris.
whole
Oh my
thing.
gosh, Christopher, yeah.
Putting in I could say for sure, hours and hours, 20 hours a week you put into preparing. all this stuff.
All I can say is I have been the beneficiary of that.
Me too, I mean, it's been.
Right.
It's.
This is why I thank Yashanina so
Well, we
much.
all have,
Yeah.
you're strengthening your link and you're
Yeah.
giving us that benefit of your link, helping us.
And it's
strengthen
how it's done,
our
there's
link.
no.
I guess that's how it's done. I mean, basically,
Exactly,
what it is Yashanina's hand, I took his hand,
right,
and he said, do this.
so we're all hanging on.
Right, and so it's
to you
just,
guys. Yes, so thank you.
I hope he's strong enough to hold all of us.
well, he's got a lot behind him, so I think it'll work.
Oh, okay, so we're not the end of the line in the ocean.
No, yeah.
Yeah, okay, let's see, the dedication prayers. Oh, yeah. Let's do all of them today,
Mhm.
because this is a special dedication. All right. Yeah, we'll go ahead and do them in English so that we fully grasp what's being said here. All right, so we begin with the dedication prayers at the bottom of the second page. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that we may liberate all sentient beings from suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. May the view of emptiness, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. Then the Guru dedication at the top of the next page. In all my rebirths, may I never be separated from perfect spiritual masters and enjoy the magnificent Dharma. Completing all qualities of the stages and paths, may I quickly achieve the state of Vajradhara. May anyone who merely sees or hears, remembers, touches or talks to me, be instantly freed from all sufferings and abide in happiness forever. It is only from the kindness of my Guru that I have met the peerless teachings of the Buddha. Thus, I dedicate all merit so that all sentient beings in the future may be guided by kind and holy Gurus. In the snowy mountain paradise, you're the source of all goodness and happiness. Powerful Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezig, may you stay until samsara ends. You are Avalokiteshvara, great treasure of compassion not aimed at true existence, and Manjushri, master of flawless wisdom, as well as Vajrapani, destroyer of endless hordes of demons, crown jewel of the land of snows, I make requests at your holy feet. And the crown jewel of the land of snows is Tsongkhapa. And the final dedication. In all my lives, may I not be separated from true lamas, and so enjoy the splendor of Dharma. Fully perfecting the virtues of levels and paths, may I speedily attain the state of Vajradhara.